Hello, third grade. Mr. Calvert here. I hope that you had a good winter break. Welcome back. We've got just a couple more weeks left of our virtual learning, so we are going to be starting a digital project that's going to take us 2 class periods, so this week and next week. And then we should hopefully be back in person after that. You'll notice that because we've been home, I've been doing a lot of things with our iPad. It's kind of a fun and good opportunity for us to try something different than what we'd usually do in class, like using paints or markers. So I've been kind of trying to experiment with some new projects for you. Our artist today, his name is Chris Zidek. I believe that's how you say his last name. I couldn't find it pronounced anywhere online, but I'm going to say Chris Zidek. And I couldn't find how old he was either, but judging by the picture, it looks like he's probably like middle 30s, maybe early 40s. So still a pretty young artist, and he is from Nashville, Tennessee. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of you have been to Nashville before. It's right here on our map of the United States. We would be right about here. And he is a muralist as well as an illustrator. So a muralist is an artist who typically makes artwork on the sides of buildings or on a wall. And an illustrator is an artist who typically makes artwork for like a magazine or a book or a website. A lot of times the artwork's kind of narrative. It tells a story. The difference between a muralist and a street artist is a muralist usually has permission to make their work. So Chris, he doesn't just paint on a wall to paint on a wall. He gets hired to do this. Whereas a street artist or somebody who does graffiti, oftentimes they don't have permission. So what they're doing is illegal and they can get in trouble for it. And Chris actually was that way. He originally started doing graffiti when he was 18, so like a senior in high school, your last year of school before you go to college. And he was actually arrested once for doing graffiti because he didn't have permission to paint on somebody's wall or on somebody's building. And since then, he's kind of changed the way he makes his art. So he's not doing illegal graffiti anymore. He now has permission. He makes those murals that I talked about. So he doesn't get in trouble for painting on buildings anymore. Now, when we look at his work, he uses really simple geometric shapes. A lot of times we see like triangles or circles or squares in his work. A lot of times he does overlapping. We can see it like here. These blues go on top of the pinks. Sometimes they go under the pinks. That makes kind of a sense of space in his work. Some things appear closer and some things feel further away. And by overlapping, it also makes his artwork a little bit more complex and detailed looking. We notice too that he does a lot with value. So value is when we think about how light or dark a color is. So here you can see it almost has like this light grayish blue, and then it gets a little bit darker, and then a little bit darker. Same as here, he has this dark pink, and then a light pink. So he's kind of experimenting with values. That's something that I'm going to want you guys to do as well today. And then he also works a lot with little small intricate patterns. You can see each one of these stripes in this blue area has a different kind of pattern. Okay, and they're pretty detailed. And a lot of times his designs are inspired by past civilizations. So think like the Egyptians or the Aztecs, people who lived a long, long time ago. A lot of times he'll draw inspiration from them. So this is one of his more illustrative works where we see like an actual person in his work. It's a little bit different than what we will be basing our work on, but we still see some of those similar elements to his style. Like I still see those little black intricate patterns. I see a shifting in color value here on the shoulders and some of the other spots. So this one's a little bit more illustrative compared to his murals. Here we see a really good example of changing that value again, going from a really light purple. This is probably purple with some white added to it, and it gets darker and darker. Same as over here with the pinks, how it gets darker and darker. Notice too how great his patterns are. Okay, and he'll repeat that pattern over and over and over and over. A lot of times his artwork's pretty big because he's working on the sides of buildings too. This one does a really great job of showing those different kinds of blue he's using. His shapes are also pretty concentric, so it's like a circle inside of a circle inside of circle inside of circle. So that would be one way to describe his artwork too, is they are kind of concentric. And typically when he starts painting, he'll start off with just the colors first. Okay, here you can see how he's painted out those geometric shapes, these triangles and the circles and half circles. And then he goes in and adds those final details. Now he doesn't add the patterns to every single shape. Like here you can see he skipped the triangles, but he does add the little detailed patterns to a lot of them. Right, so we are going to be starting a 2-week project. This first week we're going to work with our concentric shapes, and we're going to work with color value and going from light to dark and doing something multiple times. And then next week we're going to come into that design and we'll add some really small, intricate black patterns to it. Okay, so make sure to save your work today. That way we can continue working on it in next class. So our hope is to finish this before we come back to in-person learning. All right, stay tuned for the next video so you guys know what we're doing today. Can't wait to see your work.